Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Boilermaker Lounge. I'm Sam Springer, as always, joined by the All American Grant Flora. Grant, it is Tuesday. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Obviously, there's a game later tonight, but also coming off a weekend win. It's feeling good right now, especially just kind of everything that's kind of happened and getting a road win again. But yeah, it's just been kind of a fun weekend, and fun little trip. It's super cold here, but it looked super nice in LA.
Yeah, I'm a little salty, Grant. I'm a little salty because, as you know, we are in the Midwest. You know this, but everybody else also knows this. But there are some games that we get credentials for, and we go after a certain few away games. And a while back, I applied for credentials at UCLA for the game tonight. And last night, right before the kickoff of the national championship football game, I get the approval, and I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, I can't make it." So therefore, I'm not in LA for the second game, where the high today is 78 in Los Angeles. So I would have been very happy with that. But you know what? It doesn't take away the fact that Purdue uh, is in LA. They're playing a couple of games against the Southern four Western teams this season on the road. And last Saturday, or on Saturday, they get a 69-64 win over USC. Grant, this was a game, and Dustin and I talked about it in the post game show, that this was the game that you and I have talked about a lot, that Purdue had to find a way to win. Their shots weren't going down. They weren't, necessarily controlling exactly the game. They had to find a way to win, and that's what they did Saturday.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a bit with the Iowa game too, how this Purdue
Yep.
team needs
Yep.
to respond, when things aren't going their way and draw the defense or draw energy from the defense and the rebounding and whatnot, the controllable aspects of the game. It's kind of been a topic of conversation ever since that Iowa State game. And this game was as much of an example of that as ever. Like they got down early in the first half. And I remember even thinking, even saying to a couple people when I saw what was going on, like I could tell I didn't catch the first 5 minutes or so of that game, but then there was a stretch where I did, and they were down, and I was like, man, it was clear to me there was a lid on the rim,
Yeah.
and I was like, this is a situation where you have to draw on your defense and your rebounding to get back into this game, and that's kind of what started happening. They got some stops, got some defensive rebounds, kept them to one possession, and next thing you know, they just kind of chipped away, rhythmically got back into it, and with a few minutes left in the half, they were right back in it. So I was really, really impressed by the second half of that first half, and then, of course, being able to fight through some more adversity in the second half and close it out.
Well, in that first half, I remember thinking, when they fell down 22-8, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not worried, just because these guys, they had open shots. They were getting the shots that they'd wanted. They just weren't falling. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, they're as long as they still maintain and stay inside what they want to do. They don't, try to get that 14-point shot, like do everything all at once, just methodically do the things that you need to do. And I even posted about it a couple of different times, that look, they've chipped away a nice little 6-point run there, gets it within 8, and then a couple more and got it within 4, and Braden Smith did everything that he could in that first half, even after he banged his knee and had to come out for a couple of minutes. And he even mentioned that, it hurts. He's achy. It hurts still, but there was no way that he even thought about not coming back. And it's a good thing that he did come back, because 18 points, he was 4 of 4 on threes in that first half. 18 points in the first half. He basically put the team on his shoulders and his injured knee and said, "Come on, guys, let's get us a lead back." And a 6-point lead at the half, after being down 22. They went on a 30-10 run after they fell down 14 points.
Yeah, I mean, it was the second game in a row where he's had a stretch that he's just caught fire. I mean,
Yeah.
the shots he was taking and making confidently, like it was high level scoring, and especially for a guy his size and whatnot, like that's really
Hmm.
impressive. And they needed it from him. So, and especially in the midst of a banged up knee, like I noticed throughout that game, like he still kind of had a little hobble going on. Like I could tell
Right.
that knee, he wasn't looking like he was perfectly healthy or perfectly, feeling normal. So that was really impressive, and he did it with defense and other intangibles as well. So yeah, a huge, especially first half from him, but then some of the plays he made in that second half, especially when not many other guys were playing their normal level of basketball. CJ Cox had a rough night. 2 points, had a lot of great looks that he normally knocks down, didn't get him to go. Same thing for Fletcher. Trey Kaufman, Wren, like all three of those guys were just not having the normal nights.
Well, and Fletch, 2 fouls 90 seconds into the game made him sit most of that first half. I mean, he played a total of 8 minutes in that first half. And that is going to disrupt your offensive flow. When even if things aren't falling for him, that makes it difficult to have because you don't have that threat in there. Because just as much as I do, shooters. They get one to fall, they're going to there's a chance that three in a row fall, or something of that nature. And it just is, when he had to come out of the game very early, that immediately put a strain on what Purdue could do. And there's been talk that TKR Trey Kaufman Wren is there's something wrong with him. I liken it to the fact that not everybody has a really good day, or even a potentially everybody has a great week at their job, and maybe that's just where we're at. He's having a tough couple of games, and he's going to the the mention of water always finds its level. TKR is not a 5.3 rebound dude. He is an all Big Ten four man. He's going to find level. His water's going to find level, and he's going to come back and be very influential in a lot of games for Purdue.
Yeah, this was the first game where I thought he was legitimately just off basically the
Yes,
entire game. Like
completely off.
he got a lot of good in rhythm shots and looks that he normally is able to convert
Mhm.
on. And he just struggled the entire game. And then from a rebounding standpoint as well, he just wasn't as productive. I feel like in some past games, while his numbers haven't been there, at least scoring wise, maybe Purdue hasn't been using him as much. Maybe foul trouble's been a part of it. It's not like he's had some missed shots in the past as well, where it's like, oh, he normally makes these and he's not, but he's still finding ways to be um, effective on the court.
Right.
But the USC game was definitely different. That was the first time I thought, okay, there is something. This is just not his night. So it's like the reason I say that, my point there is kind of like I don't think he's just I don't think he's a lesser player than what we've seen in the past because of it. I
Right.
think it's more of a one-off type situation, even though, you could probably look back 5 to even 10 games and say, well, this isn't the usual Trey Kaufman Wren. I think this was a different kind of off from him than what we've seen. And it was just kind of a, one-off type of situation.
Well, and his expectations and what they need from him is a different thing than it was last year. Like what they need from him. Yes, they need his leadership. Yes, they do need his scoring. They don't need him to score 20 points night in and night out like they did last year. They've supplemented, they've grown, they've gotten better in spots, that it's not required that they need 20 from him every night. They need him to be hit shots. He's going to need to score some points, but he's not going to be the one. He's not going to be required to do it every night when it's you know Purdue doesn't win if they don't. You know what I mean? It's not the case this year. But in the past two first halves, Iowa, and then the USC. TKR has scored 2 total points. So like there's something in that I think it has and USC may have done something, I think maybe that defensively that really just threw him off in that first half and prevented him from getting shots the way that he was because of what he did last year against them. He trashed USC last year. And I don't know if Coach Musselman decided, you know what, we're not going to let him be the one that beats us in the post. USC is not a bad basketball team at all.
Yeah, I think Trey Kaufman-Renn is definitely still the focus or a major focus of most defensive schemes they're coming up with. Like, obviously Braden Smith is top of the scouting report, but then a lot of what they're doing is also based on TKR. So I bet that's playing a part of it. And then the fact that Purdue just doesn't need to use him as much. And then if a defense is going to focus on him, last year, they're more likely to just try and play through it anyway and figure something out because their other options weren't as nice. Whereas this year, CJ Cox is more likely to make an open jump shot. And Oscar Cluff and Daniel Jacobson, whoever's at the 5, is a much more legitimate option this year. So, instead of trying to force something really tough when the defense is already focusing on Trey Kaufman-Renn, let's figure out something else with one of our other guys who's going against lighter coverage. Like that, it makes a lot more sense, and it's just going to take away from Trey Kaufman-Renn's numbers, but it's going to help Purdue still win basketball games. So I think that's probably some sort of combination of those things is what we're looking at.
And to kind of get into a couple of things with that second or that first half, Jakari Harris had to come in and play some minutes because of Fletcher Lawyer getting in some foul trouble. He gave 5 points. He had a big 3, and also got a couple of free throws. But he played some decent defense. Now, don't get me wrong, the 14-0 run that a lot of that, honestly, Grant, USC was 2 of 10 from the 3-point line, so they did not. And I remember Dustin posting something about USC has missed 3 shots, and all 3 of them are 3-point shots. They're 8 of 8 inside the arc, like that, and that was in the midst of that 14 or that 16-0 run that it just absolutely killed Purdue. They could not stop them inside, down low, or inside the arc, and it was a combination of Purdue being a little, not their normal good defense around the hoop, that they've had this year comparatively from last year. And USC was just on when it came to those shots. They did shoot 51.7% in the first half. They did a good job with what they were doing.
Yeah.
13, you got 13 of 19 inside the arc in the first half.
Yeah, and they went 3 of 20 from 3 for the game. So like they just weren't getting much from outside, which definitely helped Purdue a lot. But we got to that point where it was 22-8. We had the timeout, and you mentioned earlier that you weren't worried. Personally, I was worried, but I saw the same things as you. Kind of like I'm like I think Purdue can get back in this, but it felt kind of like that Penn State game last year, where they just kind of got their doors blown off and they were off.
Could have gotten worse. Yeah,
and obviously being on the road, you get the momentum, and then they responded, but like. I felt like Purdue, like they put some more defensive pressure on. They were more solid. They just kind of had more of a sense of urgency once they got down, but it was a sense of urgency that was kind of a controlled, like focused type of urgency instead of like something where you get more sloppy, you start taking risks that you shouldn't take. I felt like just that overall, type of defense they're able to put together was really helpful. And 3 of 20 from 3 obviously is really rough for USC, but I think part of it was Purdue forced them into a lot of looks from 3 that maybe they weren't looking for to begin with. And 23-point shots, like 20 attempts, isn't a crazy volume to shoot. Like a lot of teams put up more than 20 shots from beyond the arc in a game. So while 3 of 20 is still really, really not good, they only took 20 of them. So like it's not like they went 5 of 36. That would
Right.
be even worse because they're shooting so many of them, missing them. They still were looking a lot on the inside, and while they got some, Purdue, like you said, was able to pick up that defense and force some turnovers and things of that nature. So yeah, it was kind of a weaker start to the defense, and USC was clicking, and then Purdue just kind of started figuring some things out. They scored. They were able to set up their defense more, and things started to turn, and the tide started changing.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were a little worried, because I said I wasn't, and the reason why, and I'll kind of explain that. The reason why I wasn't worried was because of the fact that this wasn't last year's team. This team's a year older. The leaders are a year older. They've got more in the they've got more defense at the hoop. You know they're not going to let it last the entire game where they're shooting 90% inside the arc. I felt okay, the only thing that is preventing them from being only a couple of points down or maybe even tied is the fact that these wide open shots have just not been falling. And that was what it was like. Okay, if they can start getting these to fall, and eventually, even just like a couple of minutes later, that's when they started to fall with more regularity, and that's why we saw Purdue jump to the 6-point lead at the half. Now, granted, like we mentioned before, most of that was Braden Smith, but it had to start happening with somebody, and that's why I wasn't necessarily worried. When I start worrying, it's when it's 14 points with 4 minutes left of the game. That's when I start to worry. But just that second half, or that first half, it was a half of two different stories. The Purdue couldn't hit went almost 7 minutes without scoring,
Yeah.
and just couldn't do anything, couldn't get any shots to fall. Then all of a sudden USC couldn't hit anything, and Purdue was the one making the run and getting back in the game and taking the lead. It was a crazy first half, and Purdue was let's see, I was looking at here. Purdue out rebounded USC by 2, 17-15. Braden Smith had 4 turnovers in that first half. This was a completely un-Braden Smith-like game when it comes to the assist to turnover ratio, because he out turnovered his assists. He had 6 total turnovers and only 5 assists. But the one thing that Dustin mentioned was he had 4 in the first half, and then in that second half, when they started doubling him immediately, he only turned the ball over twice in the second half.
Yeah, he figured some things out for sure, and yeah, it was a different game from him than what we sometimes see, especially just with the scoring output compared to the assist output. We've seen a lot of games this year where he's done a lot of passing and scored a little less, but these last few have been a little bit different, and he's been looking to score more, and his assist numbers have dropped a little bit, but yeah, he's still some of those turnovers, while they get credited to him, I think sometimes they're not
I made
always
mention of
entirely
that
his
earlier
fault.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe he's making a pass, the other person's in the wrong spot, or they don't catch the ball, those types of things. That could have happened. There may have even been one where like he needed to pass to somebody, and they, he was kind of being trapped near mid court, and nobody was coming to help him, and it's like, okay, he's gonna get credited with that turnover, but
Right.
he can't, at some point he needs a teammate there to
He
get
can't
rid of the
pass
ball
it to
to.
himself.
Right. Makes life a lot harder. So
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
yeah, it's like you're gonna have these games where the numbers just look different, but sometimes numbers don't really tell the full story or the accurate story. So there's probably a little bit of that.
That's a great segue because of the person I'm about to talk about right now, Grant, and that's Mr. Jack Benter, who only had 5 points. He had 7 rebounds, but Dustin and I both agreed he other than Braden Smith, he was the player of the game in this game.
Yeah, especially late. He drew 2 offensive fouls, and did he
Yep.
get a steal or something? There was a third play
He
too.
got a steal that led to a TKR lay-in or a fast break. He had an assisted. What was it? He said, what was it? A 59-second span in the second half. He hit a game-tying 3. He had an assist to TKR to tie the ball game. He had a steal, and he drew a charge.
Yeah.
All in 59 seconds. And that was at a crucial time when USC got back into the game and had taken a lead. He got it back to a tie. Then he was responsible for the basket that got to back to he in that time frame kept Purdue in the game. And when he drew the charge, it kind of flipped that switch, and Purdue was kind of got that lead and was able to keep it at 3 points or 4 points, to keep it right at enough that USC couldn't get back into it.
Yeah, and Purdue went to that smaller lineup there too, because Cluff was in foul trouble. Jacobson had been playing, but they ended up going away from him, and they went to Benter at the 4, TKR at the 5. A pretty, uncommon lineup compared to what we normally see. But I thought it worked really well. They were able to get some good stuff going offensively. They were a little smaller, so they could move more, and they were still able to guard. That would be the biggest concern with that lineup, and they held their own there. And so, and Benter was a huge part of what made that lineup work. So, yeah, definitely Benter, you could say, was the difference maker, especially in those crunch time moments with some of those plays. And yeah, you're not going to see it show up on the stat sheet, but it's also not the first time he's done this. Along with a couple of these other players, even like Braden, they've just looked a little bit like different players these last few games when they've been needed. I'm thinking specifically Penn State, Iowa, and USC, because all 3 of those games were single-digit wins by the end, but they all kind of made some good plays, or they had some different types of games, Braden with the scoring and assist numbers that have looked different, but also Braden's had some. What did he have? He had a pretty big steal, I feel like, at the end of the game against Iowa. He had a big one against USC. Yep. He's made some big crunch time plays. Benter, Cluff. It's been good to see some of these guys step in, because you have to expect Trey Coffin-Rand and Fletcher Lawyer to start playing their normal basketball again at some point.
Right.
And if Purdue is trending upwards by the end, and Benter and Cluff and these guys are still able to contribute when needed, but you also have those guys playing their normal basketball, now we're talking about a really tough team to stop here that, when the pieces come together, is pretty lethal.
A couple of players that we have yet to mention. First one is kind of goes along the Jack Benter route, as in the contributions made not being found in the stat line, is Daniel Jacobson. There was a stretch that it was, I believe it was either tied or it was a 2-point game, and USC went down, had an opportunity at the hoop, and he blocked it away. Purdue got the ball, went down, did not score, and USC pushed it again, and it looked like they were going to have a wide open layup, and Jacobson didn't block it, but he went in and altered it just enough that the USC player put it too hard off the glass, and it rolled off the front. Purdue rebounded it, took it down, calmed down, and then ended up getting a basket, and I think they tied the game after that. Jacobson, 0 points, only took 1 shot, had 3 rebounds, and 1 block and 1 assist. Not a very good stat line, but there were things that he does, or that he did the other night, that really just kind of, you let those 4 points score, Purdue's down 6 instead of only 2, and their next possession doesn't necessarily tie it, and you maybe have a different mentality by then, but that little bit of momentum, that block, and then the next time down he alters the shot and they don't get a points, and oh my gosh, we just went down and tied it. Now all of a sudden your momentum is better than what it was. So it's definitely something in the stat sheet that you don't see, but if you're watching the game, you see that and go, oh, that could be one of those moments we're talking about. But then I know I've just talked a bunch about one guy. We haven't even mentioned Oscar Cluff at 19 points. He is becoming, and Dustin and I talked a little bit about this in the post game, is he's starting to become more of an offensive option. Whereas at the beginning of the year he was getting his points as kind of not an afterthought, but not as one of those main types of, hey, he's down there, let's do it. I think he was getting his feet about him, and now he's so comfortable down there, he's becoming an option offensively. At least get it down to him, see what he can do with it. If he can't get anything done with it, he kicks it back out and they reset and do something else. But he's really becoming a big threat down there in the blocks.
Yeah, I mean, you look back probably as far as the Big Ten restart, start of the year. I think there's a good chance he's averaging more points than Trey Coughlin-Wren, and he's
I wouldn't doubt it.
he's probably outscored him more games in that whatever 5-game span it would be since that Big Ten restart. So he has been phenomenal. If it weren't for him, this Purdue team would be in a lot more of a pickle. They probably would have lost a couple of these games.
They would have lost this game.
Yeah, they would definitely would have lost this game. Probably would have lost, maybe the Iowa game, or you could even go back to even Penn State or Washington. They could have picked up a loss there without him. So he's been really impressive. His rebounding's still been good. Just his presence, it's just. I remember when we talked about him transferring in, people kind of threw around the idea who knows if his rebounding is going to translate. He's not going to be expected to or needed to score as much as he was at South Dakota State. He might be a 10-point a game guy at best. He's just going to be in there for rebounding and banging around. They kind of set the bar low, I thought, for Cluff. And to be honest, I agreed with them. But you look now and it's he is doing exactly what he was doing at South Dakota State. He might not be averaging quite as many points or quite as many rebounds, but
Right.
only because his usage rates are a little bit lower. I think if Purdue wanted to, they could easily get him those points and those rebounds.
Oh, sure.
Because
sure.
Yeah, he's just been that effective, and it's really impressive considering 2 years ago he played at Washington State and didn't really do much. Didn't average many numbers, didn't play a whole lot of minutes, was not much of a threat in a Power 5 conference, and now he's on the best team one of the best teams in the country, and is a critical part of what they're doing, and is averaging really nice numbers.
Well, Grant, 39-1, it's going to be the best team.
Yeah.
No,
Hey, still alive.
Yeah, definitely. This was just one of those games, and it kept coming back to me while I'm sitting here watching it. I'm like, they're just figuring it out. They're figuring a way to win. That second half, Cluff was probably the most. Let's break it into who had the most points in the second half. Yeah, Oscar Cluff had 13 points. Everybody else, the next highest was 5 with TKR and Fletcher Lawyer in that second half. So they were finding a way to win. Cluff had to come out because he had 4 fouls. So at that point, Purdue's treading water trying to find another offensive go-to when it comes to that, and it didn't flow like it could have been. It was just a very, Purdue scored 31 in that second half, and it was a pedestrian, just it just didn't seem like there was ever really great flow. But the nice thing on that is Purdue was playing good enough defense that USC wasn't doing very well either when it came to that. They shot just as poorly as Purdue did in that second half, but a little worse when it comes to the free throw line and from threes. Purdue shot half as many and made just as many threes as USC, but at the line, Purdue's 10 of 16, and USC is 5 of 13. That's the difference right there. And the turnover game when it comes to that second half, 6-3, Purdue wins with only turning the ball over 3 times in that second half.
Yeah, they The turnovers were huge. They did get out rebounded though. 40 to 32. Like they
Very.
got
I was gonna say
significantly
a
out
big gap.
rebounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is surprising. So it's like I almost feel like the turnovers and the rebounds almost cancel each other out because you look specifically at offensive rebounds, 6 to 10 in favor of USC. Like that's 4 possessions that USC's winning. Like when I look at rebounding, yeah, the total rebounds are kind of what you look at first, but total rebounds are going to be influenced by how many shots you miss.
Right.
More so than like directly offensive rebounding. Offensive rebounding, I think, can give a better picture sometimes of who's really controlling the glass. And USC to have 4 more than Purdue, in my opinion, kind of equates to 4 possessions that USC's getting that Purdue's not. And
Right.
that can go the same way as like the turnovers. So they almost are a wash. And so then, yeah, it's kind of those shooting numbers, especially from the free throw line. Heading into this game, USC was one of the best teams in the country at getting to the free throw line, and they made
28.
them too.
They averaged 28 attempts.
Yeah,
from the line.
they got 14, and they only made 5 of them against Purdue, and that was huge. And now Purdue is one of the best teams at not fouling, but still, like somebody's will has to assert itself, and in this particular instance, Purdue's did, and it was a huge part of the game. And then you go back to the rebounding, and Purdue had at least two free throw offensive rebounds that they allowed from USC. One turned into a 3. I don't remember what happened on the other one, but
yeah, it was a 4-point turnaround. Yeah, that trip was a 4-point trip.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean, USC was able to kind of make up for some of that through those rebounds. And if you miss 2, so they missed 9 free throws total, but 2 of them they got the rebound on, so that kind of helps them out. But still, like that's kind of crazy that the best free throw shooting team in the country goes 5 of 14 on their home floor, especially against a top 5 team in the country. So that'll be definitely probably a talk going forward for the Trojans.
And say what you will about the refereeing, it was bad on both sides, Mr. Musselman. It was bad on both sides. So I don't know that you can really hang your hat on the refereeing and officiating being that bad. It was bad on both sides. But let's go ahead. Let's move to tonight's game. It's 10 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. The Boilermakers travel to Pauley Pavilion. I do believe this is the first time that they will appear at Pauley Pavilion to take on the UCLA Bruins. UCLA 12-6 overall, 4-3 in the Big Ten. Grant, this is a game that it's the second one on a West Coast game or swing. Purdue's actually been out west longer than UCLA because UCLA played on Saturday in Columbus and had to fly back home. So, and I know they'll adjust a little bit quicker and better, probably, since that's their home time. But at the same time, is this an advantage for the Boilermakers, the fact that they've been out there longer than the Bruins?
I mean, it could be, I suppose. I mean, you would think UCLA, because they make frequent trips out to the Midwest, like this is kind of their thing, they'll be fine. But or I should say UCLA makes frequent trips out to the East from the West. So they're going back and forth is what I'm saying.
Midwest. You said Midwest. So you're
I did.
Trips out to the Midwest is what you said. So you're good. You're good.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, but they've done it enough times. Sometimes it can be easy for especially media to like really overanalyze these little things and stuff, logistics, I guess, and what's going on with the game and how it affects. And I think there's something to be said for it, but at the same time, it's not like it's going to be the reason the team, or the primary reason the team loses the game.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely like something to think about and interesting to know, but I'm not really anticipating, having a lot of major effects from either team as far as traveling is concerned. But I do think this game has a lot in common with the USC game. Like it's a lot of the same vibes. I feel like 2 teams that are talented, but have kind of struggled more than we thought they would throughout the season. Both teams that really needed big wins. Like UCLA does not have any type of quality win on their resume. Their losses aren't too bad. The only one that's really bad is the home loss to Cal. The other ones are either away games or they were games against tough teams.
Right.
So, like, that's not really hurting them, but they got to have some good wins. And a home game against, top 5 team in the country is a great place to start. So, they're talented. They're playing at home in a game that they really need to win, and they got a good coach. And what was the other thing? Essentially, it's Purdue's on the road again, and they're trying to do the same thing, weather that storm and figure it out. And they're coming off an iffy performance. So a lot of these things that are reminding me of this USC game. But the nice thing is they got the USC game, so now they hopefully are going to be a little bit more comfortable, and it's just a little bit less pressure. I think when you've got one, the second one, even if they do lose, it's like you go 1-1 on the West Coast, could be worse. So just a lot of the same things, but I think Purdue is in a better position because they already got through USC.
Well, and if you remember last year, they did play a pretty rough looking game at Washington the first game out west last season, and then they played at the time a top 10 Oregon team, and they played them very well. They didn't have a dominating performance necessarily, but they played exceedingly better in the second game out west than they did the first game. And so that I kind of look at this as kind of the same style of thing. Okay, you're right. It doesn't necessarily affect or completely be the main reason for the outcome of a game, but I do believe that trip does affect you in some way, and I think that's maybe part of the adjustment of being out there. And okay, this is actually, to us, this is a 6:30 start, but it's actually only 3:30 out here, so it really messes with your internal clock or whatever. But by the time you get out for the second game, okay, you've had a few days to adjust. Okay, I kind of know that, they know they're playing that game at 7 p.m. rather than internally it's actually 10 p.m. because that's where it is at home. So it's a little bit more of a regular timed game to them. And so I think that maybe this is one of those games that they will let's say it this way. I don't think there's any chance the being out west and the time difference affects them for the second game like it might have for the first game. I'm not even saying that it did, but it might have. But I tell you what, UCLA is a different team at home compared to what they are on the road. Like you said, their losses are all, kind of on the road, and they're not bad losses necessarily. But at home they're a better team, but they're struggling compared to what we had. The expectations that they had for Mick Cronin and these Bruins, they're struggling comparatively, and Purdue has the opportunity to maybe what I've always said is they don't always shoot the lights out, but after they struggle really badly in portions for one game, they don't normally do it a second game in a row.
Yeah, you look at UCLA. I mean, you just look at some of the names they have on their roster, and it's like, how is this team not, a top 10 or 15 team in the country? Donovan Dent has not really been what we thought he was going to be. He's averaging like 12.4 points a game. Bilodeau has been great, but like Sky Clark, I think he's been out the last couple of games. I don't know exactly why. I assume it's injury related, but like, who knows if he's been out for a couple games, decent chance he doesn't play against Purdue. But then like Trent Perry, Eric Daly Jr., Xavier Booker, like those are all quality players. They just haven't quite put it together into a team effort that can knock off a big time team. So, and that's another way that it reminds me of USC. It's like USC had Chad Baker Mazzara, who had been dealing with some injuries and some just weird stuff. And then he comes out and plays a decent game against Purdue, but like you didn't really know what you're going to get from him. And then you had some other guys that had put up some solid numbers, but like they just struggled to put together the team performance. And so it's like we don't really know what we're going to get from UCLA tonight. But at the same time, Donovan Dent has shown just how electric he can be. And Bilodeau is a great player in the front court. And you've got Xavier Booker, who, when he was at Michigan State, played a good game against Purdue. All sorts of different situations where UCLA might have an advantage. But like you said, they just haven't really put it together in big games this season.
They have 5 guys that play or that score in double figures, but you mentioned Sky Clark's one of those, and he hasn't played the last couple of games. The fact that he might play tonight, I haven't seen any sort of injury report, whether he's out or anything tonight as well. But let's say, those are the 5. They don't have anybody that's over 7 points a game after those 5 that average double figures. So, like, they have a rotation of those 5. Now, if Clark's not in there, they've only got 4, and they're substituting somebody else into there that isn't as productive. So they've got to find their points somewhere else, and Xavier Booker he's familiar with Purdue, like you said, when he was at Michigan State, he plays the Boilers, played the Boilers pretty well and stuff like that. So he's familiar with them. And don't get me wrong, UCLA's in the Big Ten, so they're used to him as well. They've played him once, but but Michigan State plays them regularly, or whatever. But my point being is if Purdue jumps out on them early and makes them really, really try to push, I don't know that they've got enough firepower to keep it going. I'm not saying that it's not possible and that they couldn't, blow up for 90, but like if Purdue's shots are falling, they've struggled enough that they may press hard on trying to hit the 5-point play, that it doesn't exist, and do it all at once, and it may bury them early.
Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, we'll see. It's obviously a little bit easier when you're at home to get back into games
Right.
and whatnot, but yeah, that there's definitely a potential for that, especially if Purdue comes out, with a little bit more fire after a close one against USC. But at the same time, like Tyler Bilodeau is going to be an interesting matchup for Purdue just overall. He's 43% from 3. I don't know what his volume is from 3. It's actually pretty decent.
He is 29 of 67.
Yeah, so like he's the second highest 3-point volume shooter on their team.
Right.
He's a forward, so he's going to stretch him out a little bit. 18.5 points a game. Like he has a chance to really make their life difficult. Obviously, Donovan Dent, when you have an electric guy like that, like I would imagine CJ Cox probably guards him just because he's a better player and you want your good defender on their better offensive player, obviously. Like, even though I bet Braden Smith could guard him, maybe they'll go back and forth. I don't know.
Maybe they'll do the Bennett Sturts plan of where they kind of rotate between the two.
Yeah, and I think they did that with Baker Mazzara a little bit too. And
yeah.
Yeah, so it could definitely be that. But like Dent is just, if there's a game where he's gonna break out and look more like the player people thought he was gonna be, the potential All-American and whatnot, this feels like the game where he's gonna do that at home against a big time opponent. Especially if Purdue has trouble guarding him. So between him and Bilodeau and some of those other ancillary guys, like UCLA could easily have the firepower to make this an even tougher game than what USC was able to, but it's just hard to predict something like that when you haven't really seen it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you can see potentially what they could do, but they haven't showed any of that yet this season. So it makes it hard to say, okay, that's what we're gonna get from them. It's, well, we could get it from them, like, and there has yet to be a game where Purdue is absolutely blown up with their shooting, and shot, just lights out from 3, and Braden Smith has 6 points but 15 assists, and just absolutely is a maestro with the ball. I'm not saying that it's definitely feels like it could be one of those games, but honestly, it's almost kind of the perfect storm that Purdue hasn't shot the greatest, and they came off a game like they did against USC where their shooting wasn't good at all. They were under 50% from the field, and just it was a tough shooting night for Purdue. Uh, it almost feels like a perfect storm where Braden Smith gets a high assist total and Purdue puts up 95 points because they're hitting shots. TKR has a breakout game potentially, and it just Fletcher hits 4 or 5. And I'm throwing out these bizarre numbers, but it just hasn't happened yet, and eventually it's going to. Again, water finds its level, and we haven't seen that hit yet. And it's almost a guarantee it's going to happen at some point during a year.
Yeah, and this also might be a game where Purdue's going to need more offense. Like it might take at least 70 plus, if not more, to win this game.
Yeah.
As I look more at the roster, you've got Eric Daly Jr. in there, who's a 6'8" guard. Like
Right.
he's going to be a tough matchup for whatever they do. They might be something more like where they're going to have to match up CJ Cox with him. Hope Braden does enough on Dent, which I would be comfortable with Braden on Dent. And then
and this may be a game where you see Benter in a little bit more. Maybe guarding at that 2 spot on Daly.
Yeah, it could be that too. And then I think Fletcher on Trent Perry probably makes the most sense.
Right.
With TKR on Bilodeau and then Cluff on Booker. But even then, like Bilodeau can stretch out TKR. Booker, at least last year, was able to make some threes. So like he could potentially stretch it out on Cluff or Jacobson, whoever's on him.
He is 9 of 22 this year, Booker is.
Okay, so like low volume, but like he can make them. Like there are a lot of potential matchups that could go UCLA's way, and if they find ways to score, then yeah, Purdue's going to have to make some shots.
Mm-hmm.
So we might find ourselves in a shootout situation. It's going to be actually a lot of fun to see what happens here, and obviously, pulling hopefully for Purdue to have the edge, and I think they will, but. It's just going to be, it's hard to tell what this game is going to look like.
Yeah, again, what I just said a few minutes ago is you can see the potential of what UCLA could do. We just haven't seen it yet. So we don't have any sort of realm of, oh, well, yeah, this is what to expect. It's, well, this is what they've done this far, but that is completely underwhelming compared to what the expectations was. Donovan Dent committing to UCLA, there was talk that he would push Braden Smith for Player of the Year this year. Like that was the talk. I haven't heard anything about Donovan Dent throughout the rest, throughout the season. Once we got going, and that's not taking anything away from what his capabilities are. It's just it hasn't come to fruition yet, and he was highly touted, and it was. Yeah, he really probably him and Yaxel at Michigan were the two that they thought, okay, those two can push Braden Smith for Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think there was a general idea that like in the backcourt in the Big Ten, he would be the best, challenger as far as best backcourt player at least too.
Right.
Like you look at the guards, even across the country, like it would be Donovan Dent, maybe second after Braden Smith. Really, it's been Bennett Sturts that's fulfilled that role, and Dent has kind of fallen back a little bit. So, I mean, this is obviously a huge challenge moment for Donovan Dent. Maybe this is what it takes for him to rise to the occasion. I hope not, because I hate it when players have had rough seasons and they just show up.
They get Purdue, better during Purdue.
Yeah, but that's just kind of what happens when you're a good team. So, it'll be fun to watch. I hope. Part of me is like, I'd love to see Donovan Dent play better just because that UCLA team has so much potential and everything. I just hope he waits till after Purdue gets the win over him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 10 p.m. Eastern, the Purdue Boilermakers take on the UCLA Bruins at Pauley Pavilion on Peacock. The ESPN predictor has, come on, refresh. 63 to 37% chance Purdue wins tonight at Pauley. Yeah, okay, yeah, that feels about right. That doesn't feel like it's way too out of the realm of yes or oh wow, they're really underappreciating what Purdue's doing. Let's say we're at the point where I can start. Purdue's playing as one of the best teams they're playing one of the best brands of basketball right now. And yeah, there's going to be some games that they don't perform to that high potential, but yet they haven't had those games trip them up. And that's not to say that they won't have some losses in there, but 39-1, it's awful hard to lose anymore when you've already lost one. But no, my point being is they've had those tests and they've still won those games, and so to me that means they're playing probably one of the better brands of basketball right now in the country, and they're being tested. They're starting to be tested, and so far they're passing the tests.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I feel like you're seeing a lot of teams even around the country just going to these road environments or whatever the case may be against games that looks like they should win on paper, and they're just kind of struggling to get it done.
Right.
Iowa State comes to mind, Michigan, even just some of those types of teams. So Purdue so far has avoided that, and they've had some rough performances, but they've kept winning, and they're clearly not playing their best basketball. But as they need to figure things out, and some of these guys start trending back upward, they're going to start, faring better in these games, especially as they hit the more competitive stretches of the Big Ten season. Like once they get back, they've got Illinois, they've got, a couple more decent games before Michigan State. So it's going to be interesting. Kind of glad they're hitting this stretch of the season now and playing this way now, so that if they can get out of it and play better when it matters. But at the same time, you can't complain when you're winning games.
Illinois, IU, at Maryland, home to Oregon, then at Nebraska. So that's the next 5. So like there are 2 games in there that kind of are easy, and I use the air quotes like very liberally there, because Maryland, even though they've really, really struggled, they had Penn State down by 30 at the half, the yesterday, or when did they play them? This last weekend. maybe it was Monday. Was it Monday? I don't know. Whenever they played Penn State, they had them down 30 at the half. Like that, and so that just means that pretty much anybody can perform really well, and especially when you have to go to College Park. So, but 10 p.m. Eastern on Peacock, Purdue and UCLA. Grant, enjoy the game tonight. I don't know that we're going to be doing a post game, seeing that the game's not going to get over probably till 12:30 at night, anyways. So we'll play that one by ear, but. At the very least, it'll probably be me and Dustin, since you go to bed at like 7:30 at night every night.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a decent chance. We'll see, but yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us for this Tuesday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. For the All-American Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you on Friday.